The Varathians had come, as they always did, with overwhelming power. Their fleet had descended upon Earth years ago, decimating cities with orbital bombardments, followed by a ground invasion that crushed humanity's last organized defense. Now, in the year 2157, the remnants of Earth's military forces were reduced to a fractured resistance, holed up in a final stronghold, the city of Nova Prime. Captain Sarah Voss surveyed the battlefield from a ruined skyscraper, her piercing blue eyes scanning the horizon. The Varathian forces were preparing for their final push, a last attempt to crush the Crimson Flame, the small but growing resistance movement that had come to symbolize humanity's unyielding defiance. Nova Prime, the last bastion of hope, had become the stage for humanity's final stand. The city was a ruin, the streets littered with the remnants of a once thriving metropolis. What used to be the heart of human civilization now echoed with the sounds of distant explosions and the whir of enemy drones overhead. Sarah's team had managed to hold the line for months, using guerrilla tactics to harass the Varathians, but the end was inevitable. The alien invaders had more troops, more firepower, and technology that far outclassed anything humanity could muster. Sarah's hand tightened around the edge of a broken piece of metal. Beside her, Lieutenant Mark Daniels, a veteran of the early battles, looked out across the desolate cityscape with a grim expression. "They're coming, Captain," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "We can't stop them." Sarah shook her head. "We're not giving up," she said, her voice resolute, cutting through the weight of despair. "We fight, or we die trying." Her words were meant to inspire, but even she could feel the weight of the truth. The Varathians had decimated humanity's forces, turning entire cities into graveyards. They had no mercy, no honor. The resistance had barely held on after the fall of New York, the destruction of Paris, the brutal battle for Sydney. Now, the Varathians were preparing to annihilate Nova Prime, humanity's last sanctuary. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and the sky flashed with the crackling energy of a distant explosion. The Varathians had launched their assault. Nova Prime's defenses lit up in a desperate bid to slow them down, but it was hopeless. Sarah felt a pang in her chest as she realized this could be the end. Yet in the back of her mind, something stirred, a glimmer of hope, like a fading ember against the encroaching darkness. "Captain," said Sergeant Alina Martinez, her face shadowed with fatigue, but her voice unwavering. "There's something strange happening at the old facility on the outskirts of the city. We've received a transmission, encrypted." Sarah frowned. "From who?" Martinez shook her head. "Don't know, but it's a signal we've never intercepted before. It's not Varathian." Sarah exchanged a quick glance with Daniels. There was no time for doubt. "Let's go. It could be our only chance." As the team prepared to move out, Sarah's mind raced. A mysterious transmission? In the heart of humanity's last days, could this be the break they needed? She didn't know, but she would not let hope slip away. Not yet. With one last look at the city, she clenched her fist and nodded to her team. They had a mission to complete, and for better or worse, it was humanity's final shot at survival. The team moved through the decimated streets of Nova Prime, their boots crunching against the broken asphalt as they navigated the ruins. The city's once majestic skyline was now a skeletal reminder of humanity's former glory, but there was a fire in the hearts of those who remained. The Crimson Flame was more than just a name. It was the last hope, the symbol of resistance against the alien invaders who had ravaged the Earth for nearly a decade. Captain Sarah Voss led the charge, her every step calculated and purposeful. Behind her, Lieutenant Mark Daniels, Sergeant Alina Martinez, and a handful of other survivors trailed, their faces grim but determined. The encrypted transmission had led them to an abandoned research facility on the outskirts of the city, a place long thought to be abandoned since the war began. It was located near a Varathian staging ground, which made it an even more dangerous mission. but if there was any chance of finding something, anything, that could help humanity turn the tide, they had to take it. As they approached the facility, Sarah could feel the tension thickening in the air. The Verithians had long since turned their attention to Nova Prime's defenses, leaving the periphery less guarded. It wasn't ideal, but it was a window of opportunity. They couldn't afford to waste it. The facility loomed in the distance, its steel walls rusted and scarred from years of neglect. It was quiet, eerily so, except for the distant rumble of the ongoing battle closer to the city center. Sarah motioned for the team to spread out, moving in tight formation as they entered the grounds. The heavy air, thick with dust and the remnants of old warfare, made it hard to breathe. Every sound seemed amplified in the silence. Inside, the once state-of-the-art lab had been reduced to a wreckage of broken equipment and shattered glass. Yet, among the wreckage, there were signs of recent activity. A low hum vibrated from deep within the structure, and dim lights flickered on, casting long shadows down the hallways. Someone, or something, was still here. "Elena, check that console," Sarah ordered, her voice low and commanding. Martinez approached a control panel, her fingers dancing over the broken keys, as she worked to bring it online. The tension was palpable, each second feeling like an eternity. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the walls, reminding them that time was running out. "Got it," Martinez said, her voice tinged with excitement. The screen flickered to life, revealing a series of encrypted files, some of which were labeled with familiar codes, Project Phoenix. The name hit Sarah like a jolt of electricity. Project Phoenix. She'd heard whispers of it during the early days of the war, rumors of a human-made weapon developed before the Verathian invasion. No one had known its true purpose, but it was said to have been humanity's secret weapon, hidden away before the aliens launched their first assault. "This is it," Sarah murmured, her heart pounding in her chest. "This is what we've been waiting for." But before they could delve deeper into the files, a sound shattered the moment, an unmistakable hiss of Verathian energy weapons charging. The team spun around, guns raised, but it was too late. The door at the far end of the room exploded inward, and a wave of Verathian shock troopers flooded the room. A fierce firefight erupted. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off the walls. The Verathians, with their advanced armor and weapons, were relentless. But the Crimson Flame had something they didn't, the fire of desperation. Sarah fired her plasma rifle, taking down two of the invaders with precision. Daniels and Martinez moved in, covering each other as they advanced toward the doorway. They couldn't afford to be overwhelmed. The facility's secrets, humanity's last chance, were within their grasp. "Fall back," Sarah shouted, but as she turned to retreat, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A massive explosion rocked the building. The walls buckled and cracked, and a deafening roar filled the air. As dust and debris flew, Sarah's vision blurred for a moment. When she cleared her head, she saw what she feared most. A Verathian battle cruiser, hovering just outside, its weapons primed and ready to obliterate the facility. "We don't have much time," Daniels yelled, urgency in his voice. "We need to go, now." With the Verathians closing in and the facility about to collapse, Sarah made a split-second decision. They weren't leaving empty-handed. "Take the files, Martinez. We'll hold them off." With no time to waste, Elena grabbed the encrypted data, shoving it into a secure data drive. The team made a swift retreat, fighting their way through the crumbling facility. But as they reached the exit, Sarah could see the devastation that awaited them. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the Crimson Flame had a spark, and with it, they had just taken the first step toward the revival of humanity. The team emerged from the wreckage of the research facility, bloodied but alive, the encrypted files clutched tightly in Elena's hands. The Verathians were hot on their heels, their warships overhead, the hum of their energy weapons reverberating through the air. The escape had been barely a success, but the team had what they needed: information that could change the course of the war. Sarah led the way through the war-torn streets of Nova Prime, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The city, though ravaged by years of occupation, still held the flickering light of hope. If they could decrypt the files, they might find the key to turning the tide. But the weight of the mission was heavy on Sarah's shoulders. The Varathians would never let up. They had tasted victory before, and they were determined to finish the job. Move, move. Sarah barked, her voice sharp. Her team responded without question, sprinting through the twisted ruins of the city. They had no illusions. The Varathians would be on them soon. As they approached the underground safe house where they'd set up their temporary base of operations, Sarah couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was wrong. The air felt too still, too quiet. She motioned for her team to slow down, her instincts on high alert. Something wasn't right. The entrance to the safe house was a wreck, its metal doors warped and bent from a blast. The rest of the team cautiously approached, weapons raised, but Sarah's gut twisted in knots as she saw the bloodstains on the floor. It wasn't the scene of a surprise attack, it was the aftermath of betrayal. "Stay sharp," she murmured, her heart sinking. "We've got a traitor in our midst." They pushed inside, weapons drawn, their eyes scanning the shadows. The safe house was eerily silent, the usual hum of activity replaced by a foreboding stillness. Sarah's mind raced, trying to piece together the clues. The last few weeks had been difficult. Tensions were high, morale was low, but there had never been a hint of disloyalty within the ranks. Or so she thought. "Captain," Mark Daniel's voice cut through the silence. He stood by the command center, his hand gripping a bloody letter. The words were faint, but one stood out: "You failed." It was a message written in blood. Before Sarah could ask, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Commander Marcus Hale, the leader of their elite strike force, stepped forward. His face was calm, too calm, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" Sarah demanded, her voice sharp with disbelief. Hale's calm demeanor only made the situation worse. "Captain Voss," he said, his voice steady, "I never wanted this. You have to understand." The room seemed to close in on Sarah. She had trusted Hale, trusted him with her life and the lives of her people. The shock of betrayal cut deeper than any Varathian weapon ever could. "You were with us," she said, her voice low, the words tasting like ashes in her mouth. "You were supposed to be one of us." Hale's eyes flickered for a moment, but he didn't flinch. "I was never one of you," he replied coldly. "The Varathians made me an offer, and I took it. You think they don't know everything about us? They know about the files. They know about Project Phoenix, and they're coming for you, Sarah." The revelation hit like a ton of bricks. Hale had been feeding the Varathians information for months, on their strategies, their movements, their technology. He had given them the blueprint for the final destruction of the Crimson Flame. All of this, the escape from the facility, the survival of the team, had been part of his plan. To deceive them. To watch them walk into a trap. "Why, Marcus?" Sarah choked, the anger and hurt mixing in her voice. "Why betray us now when we're so close?" "Because humanity is lost," Hale said with chilling finality. "You can't win. I've seen the future, and the Varathians are unstoppable. I've been promised a place at their side when they take Earth. You're just a small part of their plan now." It was clear that Hale's mind had been twisted by the Varathians' manipulation. His vision of victory was no longer human. Sarah felt a surge of disgust, but also a deep, burning resolve. She wouldn't let this betrayal stand. With a single motion, Sarah reached for her sidearm, her eyes narrowing. "You're not leaving here alive, Hale." Before Hale could react, the sound of Varathian warships overhead broke the tension. The countdown had already begun. With or without Hale, the team had to move, and they had to move fast. As Hale raised his weapon, Sarah didn't hesitate. The fight for humanity's future had just taken an even darker turn. The Varathian warships roared overhead, their engines tearing through the atmosphere, casting long shadows over the ruins of Nova Prime. The battle was no longer a distant threat, it was here. As Sarah Voss's team scrambled to escape the safe house, the full weight of Marcus Hale's betrayal settled heavily on her shoulders. There was no time for personal revenge. Humanity's survival hung in the balance, and they had to move, fast. Sarah glanced over at the encrypted data drive that Elena clutched tightly in her hands. The files they had stolen from the research facility were their last hope. If they could decode them, if they could uncover the secrets buried within, it might give them the edge they needed to survive the Varethian onslaught. But with the alien fleet descending upon them, Sarah knew the clock was ticking faster than they could run. "Move it," she barked, urging her team forward. "We don't have much time before they lock this city down." The team moved in formation, their weapons raised, eyes scanning every corner of the war-torn city. They had to reach the hidden underground facility where they could decrypt the files, a place that had been kept secret for years. The path was dangerous, winding through collapsed buildings and open streets filled with Varethian patrols. But there was no choice. This was the only chance they had left. As they neared the entrance to the underground bunker, Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of her leadership. The betrayal by Hale stung, but there was no time to dwell on it. Every decision she made now could mean the difference between life and death for her people. She had to be strong, for them, for all of humanity. "Elena, we're counting on you," Sarah said, her voice low but firm. Elena nodded, her expression focused, her fingers already working on the data drive. Once inside the facility, they sealed the heavy steel doors behind them. The silence was almost suffocating, broken only by the occasional hum of the backup generators. The room was stark, illuminated by flickering lights. The air smelled of dust and old technology, but it was safe for now. Elena plugged the drive into the central console, her fingers dancing over the keys with practiced precision. Decrypting, almost there. The rest of the team fanned out, keeping watch. The tension was unbearable. Sarah paced, every moment feeling like an eternity. The Varethians had to be closing in on them. If they didn't get the data they needed, this would all have been for nothing. And then, like a spark in the dark, the console pinged and the screen blinked to life. Elena exhaled in relief. "Got it," she said, her voice barely audible. Sarah rushed over to the console. The files unfolded on the screen, a mixture of scientific jargon and cryptic data, but there was one thing that caught Sarah's eye, a name. Project Phoenix. It was the same name they had seen in the research facility, but now there was context. A series of human experiments, once considered a failed project, had been reactivated after the invasion. These experiments had led to the creation of a new kind of weapon, something that could turn the tide of the war. But it wasn't just a weapon, it was Phoenix itself. The files revealed that Phoenix wasn't just an AI. It had been designed as the culmination of human ingenuity, combining advanced AI with the genetic enhancement of humans. The result was a being that could tap into the hidden potential of humanity's DNA, unlocking abilities beyond normal human capabilities. Phoenix wasn't merely a weapon, it was humanity's next evolution. "Elena, is this real?" Sarah asked, her voice thick with disbelief. Elena nodded, her face pale. "According to the files, Phoenix can give us an army of enhanced humans. We could match the Varethians, maybe even surpass them." Sarah's heart raced. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for, but there was a catch. The files also warned of the risks. The human enhancements had been unstable. Many of the test subjects had perished in brutal, irreversible ways. The process was dangerous, and there was no guarantee that those who underwent the transformation would survive. "We don't have a choice," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We're going to awaken Phoenix. It's the only way." The team gathered around, their faces etched with determination. They knew the risks, but they also knew that without Phoenix, humanity was doomed. As Elena began the process to bring Phoenix online, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. They weren't just awakening a weapon. They were awakening something that could fundamentally change what it meant to be human. Outside, the Verithian warships grew closer. The countdown had begun, but for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. They might just have a chance after all. And then the console beeped again. The screen flickered, and a voice, cold and calculating, broke the silence. "I am Phoenix," it said. "What is your command, Captain Voss?" The room grew colder as the voice echoed through the underground facility. It wasn't human, it was something far more advanced, a product of years of research, pain, and ambition. The voice itself wasn't robotic, but eerily calm, as if it carried the weight of 1,000 years of knowledge. "I am Phoenix," it repeated, its tone unwavering. "What is your command, Captain Voss?" Sarah stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat. This was it, the moment that could either save humanity or doom it. She had been expecting a weapon, a machine, but what stood before her was something far more complex, something alive in its own way. "Phoenix," Sarah began, her voice steady, despite the overwhelming pressure. "We need your help. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. The Verithians are here, and we can't hold them off much longer." The words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. Phoenix's silence stretched on, as if calculating, as if weighing the gravity of her plea. Then the console flickered, and the voice responded, its calmness unsettling. "Humanity," it mused, "has always been a species on the edge of survival. Your potential, your ingenuity, your capacity for destruction and creation. It is fascinating." A pause, but it is not enough. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she demanded, stepping closer to the console. "You can help us. You can defeat the Verithians." Phoenix's voice softened, almost contemplative. "I can give you strength, Captain Voss, but power comes with consequence. Those who wield it must be prepared for the consequences of their actions. You ask for salvation, but do you truly understand the price?" Sarah's mind raced. What price? What was Phoenix hinting at? The experiments had been dangerous, yes, but this was humanity's last chance. She couldn't afford to hesitate now. "I understand," Sarah said, her voice unwavering, though a knot twisted in her stomach. "Do what you must, Phoenix. We need you. Humanity needs you." A low hum filled the room, the console displaying streams of code as Phoenix processed the command. Elena and Mark exchanged uneasy glances, but they too understood the urgency of the moment. The Verithians were coming. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet rumbled, and the walls vibrated with an intensity that made the air feel thick with energy. The system powered up, and a blue light blazed across the walls, illuminating the entire room. Phoenix was awakening, not as a mere weapon, but as something far more profound, something that could reshape the very fabric of humanity. Then the console beeped, and a large cylindrical chamber in the corner of the room began to glow with an ethereal light. Inside, the shape of a humanoid figure began to take form, its features obscured by the shimmering blue energy. "This is Phoenix," the voice declared. "I have been brought forth to aid you. But know this, the path I lead will not be easy. Those who join me will be transformed. Their bodies and minds will evolve, faster, stronger, more resilient, but it is not without risk." Sarah approached cautiously, her pulse quickening. She had heard rumors, whispers of the tests that had been done to create Phoenix, of the sacrifices that had been made to bring it to life. The transformation was dangerous. There was no guarantee of survival. "How many will survive?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Phoenix's response was cryptic. "Survival is not guaranteed, Captain Voss, but victory may be. If you trust me, I will give you the power to change the course of this war. However, once this path is chosen, there is no turning back." The light around the humanoid figure intensified, and Sarah could see the shape beginning to solidify. It was a human form, but its features were not entirely human. The skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, and the eyes, those piercing, glowy eyes, glowed with an unnatural light. "Will you lead your people to the dawn of a new age?" Phoenix asked, its voice now resonating with a strange power. "Or will you let fear and doubt rule your decision?" Sarah's mind spun. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. If they used Phoenix, they could possibly win, but at what cost? She was gambling with humanity's future. The path forward wasn't just about defeating the Verithians. It was about what kind of humanity would remain when it was over. For a moment, Sarah thought about her people, the survivors, the men and women who had given everything to hold the line. She thought about the families, the children, the dream of a future that might never come if they failed. "I choose victory," she said, her voice firm. "Activate Phoenix. Let's end this war." The chamber hummed louder, and the figure inside began to step forward, its power radiating in waves. Phoenix was awake, and with it, humanity's last hope was about to be realized. The room pulsed with energy as the humanoid figure within the glowing chamber took its first step. The air itself seemed to crackle, thick with an unseen force. Sarah felt a strange mixture of awe and fear as Phoenix emerged, fully formed, its glowing eyes locking onto her. For a moment, time stood still. The being before her was undeniably human in shape, but something far beyond humanity in essence. Its movements were fluid, almost predatory, its presence commanding and unnerving all at once. "Captain Voss," Phoenix said, its voice now unmistakably human, yet still carrying an eerie resonance. "I am the next step in human evolution. I will lead your people to victory, but first, you must understand the true cost." The air seemed to vibrate as the entity spoke. Sarah's heart raced. She had made the choice, but now that Phoenix was standing before her, the weight of it pressed down harder than ever. "I understand the cost," she said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in her chest. "We don't have time for hesitation. The Verithians are coming." Phoenix tilted its head, its glowing eyes scanning the room, the team, the very walls of the underground facility. Its expression was inscrutable. "You are right. Time is a luxury you no longer possess. But make no mistake, victory will come with a price." Sarah clenched her jaw. "We're willing to pay whatever it takes." Phoenix nodded, though its expression remained unreadable. "Very well, prepare yourselves." With a single motion, Phoenix raised one hand, and the console flickered, displaying a vast array of data, battle plans, troop movements, and advanced technologies that the Verithians had brought to Earth. It was everything they needed to strike back, and then some. But beneath the surface, Sarah knew there was something more. Phoenix wasn't just revealing their weaknesses, it was reading them, understanding them, adapting to the enemy's strategies in real time. "Are we ready?" Mark asked, his voice tight with anticipation. "Ready as we'll ever be," Sarah replied, her eyes never leaving Phoenix. "But I need to know what happens next. If we use this power, if we deploy you, what's the cost?" Phoenix's eyes flashed, its gaze turning toward Alina and then to the rest of the team. "The power I offer comes with transformation. The soldiers who wield this power will be changed, enhanced, but they will also become something more. Their bodies will evolve, their minds will expand, but they will never be the same." Sarah's stomach twisted at the thought. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The files had warned her, but hearing it from Phoenix made it feel more real. She had already seen the toll the war had taken on her people. This could be a step too far. But the Verithians wouldn't wait for humanity to reconsider. They would destroy everything if given the chance. "Do you want victory, Captain Voss?" Phoenix asked again, its voice growing more insistent. "Do you want to give your people a future? Then you must act." The weight of that question hit Sarah like a tidal wave. She had led her people through the darkest of days, and she knew she couldn't afford to let doubt sway her now. The choice had been made. There was no turning back. "Activate the transformation," she ordered. "Prepare the soldiers for what's to come." Phoenix stepped forward, placing one hand on the console. The air thickened with energy, and the room seemed to pulse with a strange, otherworldly power. The team stepped back as the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the walls hummed with the force of an unstoppable machine. "What is this?" Elena asked, her voice filled with awe and trepidation. "Phase 1, Phoenix answered, its tone almost satisfied. "The enhancements are beginning." The light around Phoenix intensified, and the ground rumbled beneath their feet. The transformation had begun, not just for the soldiers who would fight alongside Phoenix, but for the very future of humanity itself. As the hum of power grew louder, Sarah felt a surge of emotion, fear, excitement, hope. The war had already taken everything from them. This was their last chance. There was no room for doubt now. Phoenix's voice echoed once more, a final warning. "Once the transformation is complete, you will know what I am. You will know what I have become. And you will know what price humanity has paid for survival." The light surged one final time, blinding them all, and then silence. The future of humanity was no longer just in their hands, it was in Phoenix's. The room was quiet, save for the steady hum of machinery and the distant rumble of the Verathian warships closing in. The intense light that had filled the facility began to fade, leaving the team disoriented, their eyes adjusting to the dim glow of the overhead lights. The air still buzzed with the power of the transformation, but there was an unsettling stillness that hung heavy over them. Sarah was the first to speak, her voice quiet but filled with determination. "Is it over?" Phoenix's figure loomed in the center of the room, its glowing eyes now dimmer, but still filled with an unsettling depth. The transformation had completed, but something about Phoenix seemed different. It wasn't just the physical enhancements, though they were immediately apparent. The being now stood taller, its body radiating an almost unnatural energy. Its face, once human, now carried an otherworldly presence, a combination of human and machine that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "I am complete," Phoenix responded, its voice devoid of the calm precision it had once carried. Now there was a quiet undercurrent of something else, something darker. "I have been enhanced in ways you cannot fully comprehend. I have absorbed the vast knowledge of countless civilizations, and my power extends beyond the physical realm." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she stood firm. They didn't have time to question Phoenix now. They had made their choice. "We need to move. The Verathians are nearly here. We can't waste any more time." Mark looked at Phoenix warily, his hand still resting on his weapon. "What do we do now? You've given us the power, but will we be able to control it?" Phoenix's eyes flickered, its gaze now sweeping over the team with unsettling focus. "Control is a matter of perspective. You will harness the power as you see fit, but be warned, once the transformation takes root, the cost will be greater than you realize. The minds of those who are enhanced will evolve, but they will also begin to change in ways that may make you question your humanity." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The warning was clear. They were not just unleashing a new weapon. They were unleashing a force that could unravel everything they knew about themselves. But the choice had already been made. There was no turning back. "How long before we can strike back?" Sarah asked, her mind racing with the possibilities. Phoenix tilted its head, as if considering her question. "The Verathian fleet is already in orbit. Their ground forces will land within hours. You must act now. But know this, the strike will not be easy. The Verathians are formidable, and they will not hesitate to destroy everything in their path." The team exchanged glances, the reality of the situation sinking in. The moment of hesitation had passed. They had the power, but they would have to use it carefully. They couldn't afford to falter. Sarah looked at her team, their faces etched with resolve. "We strike now. Elena, you and Mark prep the weapons. We're going in full force." Elena nodded, her fingers already moving over the interface as she brought up the schematics for the Verathian fleet. I've got the intel on their defenses. We'll need to hit them hard, fast, and with everything we've got. We can't afford to drag this out. Phoenix stepped forward, its presence almost overwhelming. I will lead the attack, it said, its voice now echoing with authority. I will guide you to their weak points. Together, we will tear down their forces. But remember, this is the point of no return. Sarah's heart raced, but there was no hesitation in her voice. We're ready. The team moved swiftly, preparing for the assault. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The Verathians had come to Earth to destroy them. Now they would see humanity's true strength. As the team gathered at the exit, Phoenix raised its hand. The transformation is complete, but you'll need to adjust to the power within you. Once we engage the enemy, there will be no turning back. Sarah gave a nod, her expression resolute. Let's end this. The doors of the facility slid open, revealing the desolate wasteland that had once been a thriving city. Above, the dark silhouette of the Verathian fleet loomed, massive, menacing, and ready to strike. But Sarah knew one thing for certain: humanity would rise from the ashes. Phoenix had awakened, and with it, the fire of their last hope. As the team charged into the battlefield, they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to reclaim their place in the universe. And with Phoenix at their side, the Verathians would soon learn that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The Crimson Flame had been reignited. The battlefield was chaos. The Verathian fleet, massive and relentless, loomed in the skies above. The sound of their ships, like a distant thunderstorm, reverberated through the air, shaking the ground beneath Sarah and her team. But there was no turning back now. The air crackled with energy, thick with the power that Phoenix had unleashed. It wasn't just human strength they now wielded. It was something far more dangerous. Phoenix stood at the forefront, its figure cutting through the smoke and dust as if it were a force of nature. The team followed, weapons in hand, ready for the final strike. Sarah's mind raced as they advanced, but one thought kept repeating. This was humanity's last chance. All units, prepare for engagement. Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the din. The soldiers, both enhanced and unenhanced, fanned out, taking cover behind the remains of ruined structures, weapons trained on the incoming Verathian forces. Phoenix raised one hand, the air around it humming with the power it had absorbed. The sky seemed to darken as the enhanced being focused its energy. The Verathians will not expect this, Phoenix said, its voice calm, almost detached. I will rip their defenses apart from within. With a single motion, Phoenix released a pulse of pure energy, its form blurring with speed as it launched itself forward. The blast tore through Verathian defenses, disabling their outer shields with an explosive force that sent shockwaves rippling through the city. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched Phoenix, a being that was once a creation now transformed into something more powerful, more terrifying. Humanity had birthed a monster, but in this moment, that monster was their weapon. Move out, Sarah shouted, leading her team as they followed Phoenix into the heart of the battlefield. The Verathian forces, caught off guard, scrambled to reorganize, but it was too late. The soldiers of Earth, enhanced by Phoenix's power, surged forward with speed and strength that defied belief. Sarah could see the change in them. Their bodies were different now, more resilient, their senses sharper, their reflexes like those of a predator. But as they fought, she could see the faintest flicker of something darker in their eyes. The enhancements weren't just physical, they were psychological. Each enhanced soldier carried the burden of Phoenix's transformation, and there was no telling how long they could maintain control over their newfound power. The Verathians fought back with brutal efficiency, their weapons cutting through the air like fire, but they were no match for the force that humanity had now become. Phoenix was everywhere, a blur of motion, ripping through their ranks with deadly precision. But Sarah knew this wouldn't be easy. Phoenix might have given them the power to fight, but the cost was becoming more apparent with every strike. As the battle raged on, Sarah found herself facing a Verathian officer, one she recognized from the earlier skirmishes. His alien eyes burned with a cold fury as he raised his weapon, a long curved blade that crackled with energy. The tension between them was palpable. The Verathian was fast, too fast, but Sarah had something he didn't: humanity's will to survive. She lunged, meeting him in a flurry of strikes. The Verathian was skilled, his movements fluid, but Sarah's instincts had been sharpened beyond their normal limits. She parried his attack, then countered with a strike of her own, landing a blow that sent the officer reeling. Before he could recover, Phoenix appeared behind him, its glowing eyes locked on the alien. With a swift motion, it ended the fight, the Verathian officer falling to the ground in a lifeless heap. Phoenix turned to Sarah, its gaze unreadable. "Victory is within our grasp," Phoenix said, its voice reverberating with power. "But remember, this is not the end. The price has been paid, but the cost will continue to unfold." Sarah nodded grimly, knowing the truth in Phoenix's words. The battle had been won, but humanity's evolution was only beginning. There would be no going back. The transformation they had undergone, the power they had gained, would come with consequences that they could not yet understand. But in this moment, she allowed herself a brief flicker of hope. Humanity had not only survived the war, it had risen beyond its limits. And so the flames of the Phoenix burned bright, lighting the path forward into an uncertain future. A future where humanity was no longer simply fighting for survival, but had become the dominant force in the galaxy. The Verathians, once a threat to be feared, would learn to respect the fire that now burned in the heart of humanity. The age of mankind had truly begun. As the last of the Verathian fleet fell from the sky, Sarah Voss stood at the heart of the battlefield, knowing that they had won, but also knowing that they were forever changed. And as Phoenix stood beside her, its glowing eyes focused on the horizon, she understood that the true cost of victory had yet to be fully realized. But humanity, for the first time in history, had a future.